Welcome to Pera's Playbook. This is your host, Alex Pera. Let's open up our playbook and see who our guest is. Please enjoy. Welcome to episode 108 of Pera's Playbook. Today I'm joined by Anders Hill. He's the superintendent at Houghton Portage Township Schools, but he was the starting center for multiple seasons at Central Michigan University back in the early 2000s. So Anders, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, no problem. We were just transitioning from radio to TV back then, so it was quite a while ago.
Yeah, podcasts weren't that wasn't even a thing. Now that's pretty much all sports. I mean, everyone's got a podcast, and that's the biggest way people get their sports news now is they listen to Golick and Golick Jr. or whoever, RJ Young Show, Joel Klatt, all these different shows. That's how you get your sports news. It's totally different.
My boys bust my chops a lot, and I was telling them I was going to do a podcast, and all of a sudden they were interested. I was like, "Whoa, maybe this is a big deal." Podcast here.
Yeah, maybe our dad's not so old after all. So usually I go back and I kind of start in the beginning. Not always, but usually kind of go back to recruiting, and that's something that's changed a lot over the years. Obviously now there's NIL money and guys doing unofficial visits and they get fancy photo shoots and all this stuff. And what was your recruiting experience like, back then in the 90s?
Yeah, it was, I remember thinking it was a really weird that you would get coaches calling you like every night. You'd have to take 3 or 4 phone calls and, talk to, the recruiting coordinator from Northern Illinois and Eastern Michigan and Central Michigan. And, it was kind of an interesting process. It was cool for like 2 weeks, and then I very much disliked it. So I ended up committing to Central, the summer before my senior year. I knew that, they had a tradition of really developing good offensive linemen, and Upers had gone there, and had a chance to, Tom Curley recruited me. He was the offensive coordinator there. And, it just seemed like the place for me. So I was kind of done. And there were some other schools, a couple Big Ten schools offered late, and Indiana and Michigan State. And I just really felt like I didn't want to go be somebody's second, third, fourth choice. If you're offering me in November, you should have been there a year and a half ago.
Right. And I'm sure, you mentioned other Upers going to CMU, and that's something, there's actually a pretty strong history of Upers going to play football at CMU. It's one of the few like Division I schools. They just keep coming back. And I know there's a couple Upers there now, a kid from Marquette and Sault Ste. Marie. So it's nice to see that they're recruiting kids, because it's so hard to get recruited in the Upper Peninsula to get noticed. I mean, you got Tech and Northern, obviously. A lot of kids get those opportunities, but otherwise it's really, really hard.
Yeah.
Obviously for basketball, like one of the only ways is if you play AAU.
Yeah, you have to travel out of the area, and I would say recruiting really picked up for me when I started going to camps. You have to go to Ann Arbor and make that circuit, and just because they're not up here meeting kids. So that was big for me, was going downstate and showing up at those camps. And I kids up here are tough. They work hard. They just need to see you. Yeah, and there's been a lot of Upers that have played offensive line and been really good offensive linemen. So there's a lot of pride in that. Every time I see a kid going there, the young man from Marquette, and I think his brother is committed to Central too, and just wish him the best of luck. We want to keep that pipeline going of Upers going down there, and you better believe when you show up and another Upers there, they tell you it's important that you don't let us down, and you got to keep that standard high.
Yeah. You also played basketball and did track. Was that important to the coaches when they were recruiting you, that you were a multi-sport athlete?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I actually grew up downhill skiing too. My dad was an All-American at Michigan Tech, and I at least in high school for 1 year, my sophomore year, I played basketball, football, track, and was on the ski team. Proud to say I was the Arella Cup champion of the area champion. It was about that time I was probably like 270 pounds, and I told my dad, "There's no way I'm putting on a stretchy suit ever again." these boots, these are the biggest size they make and they barely fit. Like I'm gonna go play basketball. And that was a good choice. Coaches did like that. They liked that you could do multiple things. Um, I try to give that advice to kids. If you want to be recruited, they don't want to see somebody who just does one thing. Like they want to see people who are athletes, who are competitors, that, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're gonna be good at it and hate to lose.
Yeah, yeah, and it it shows that you're a hard worker, right? Because you go in the whole school year and you're balancing school and academics. If you just do one sport, then I mean, obviously you can excel in one sport, but I think other sports polish you too. If you do track, I mean, it can build strength and speed, and if you play hockey or basketball or whatever you're doing, it can really enhance whatever your main sport is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And um, yeah, that's what I'm probably one of the proudest things, like it's fun to talk about myself, but I can't help but talk about my own son. I got a son who's the skinniest center in the UP right now, and he won the UP mile and 800, and he's playing center for us, and plays basketball, and he'd probably run cross country too if they'd let him just go to a couple meets, but I'm proud to see that he's kind of carried that on and will, just wants to compete.
Yeah. Did he want to be the center, or did you kind
Yeah.
of
Oh yeah.
guide him
There's
into
no,
that?
like from all my boys, from the moment they were old enough to walk, they were in a good 3-point stance. And you know, Luke was one, he's always wanted to just do everything. So, we used to work lineman hand drills on the porch when he was 4 years old. And he's actually, fought with coaches when they said, well, we're going to move you to tight end or running back, or, we want you to try this. He'll like fight his way back in and, push the other center out of there. And he's like, I'm the center.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So we're gonna jump ahead a little bit in your story to 1999. So I found this old student news article. I think it was from the beginning of your senior year. They were interviewing you, and in the article, it kind of talked about when you kind of really took over the starting job, when you had to jump in a 99 game against Western, which anyone who knows Central Michigan and Western, I mean that's the big rivalry. There's there's a lot of hatred between those two schools. So that's a high stakes game to all of a sudden, hey, you got to go in there. Our starting center's hurt.
Yeah. Well, um, like I told you, I was impressed. You did your homework, but it was my freshman year, and it was actually I was playing guard, and I didn't play center until I started my last 3 years as center, but my freshman year I was the backup guard, and we were playing Central, or we were playing Western at home, and it's just such a great atmosphere for a kid to come out of the UP and play in front of 30,000 people that are losing their mind. And, you got people who very much dislike each other. It was just so much fun. So even walking to the stadium that morning, I remember walking and, kids from Western came and vandalized everything with, FCMU and all these things. And I'm walking to the stadium and I'm all amped up. I'm like, yeah, if only I could get in. And it was like second play of the game. The guard rolled his ankle and they were like, Hill, you're in. And, I ended up having a great game. I mean, I think I graded out at like 95%, and we banked in a field goal with no time left to win it. And I just, for somebody in their first game as a freshman to say like, this was my first game, I couldn't have asked for any better. And then kind of on top of that, 2 games later, the guard in Eastern Michigan rolled his ankle, and we won an overtime game. And I had a nice game in that game, and they actually we had a reverse they put in because I was a pretty quick lineman, and I was so jacked up to run it that I took off, and I was supposed to kind of reverse pivot out, so kind of like sell like a reach protection and then kind of spin around. And I hit the ground and did like an up down, and on film it doesn't even look like I was on the ground, and just shot back up. And but those 2 games my freshman year were really really special. I don't think about that when you get old, you don't have time to think about it. But your question really got me thinking about those 2 games, and that was awesome. And then from that point on, it was playing center.
Yeah. So when did you make or like why did they switch you from guard to center?
I
Injuries, was that the reason they needed
no,
somebody, or?
the center was a senior, so I kind of in college you back up multiple positions. So I was guard, um, backing up both guards and like a second or third string center. And in spring ball, then they just reshuffle everything when you lose those positions. And uh, I if they would have told me, you're playing water boy, if it would have got me on the field, I would have been happy to play it. So they needed a center, and I think I fit the bill. And so it was just kind of one of those things where that's where I could earn a spot.
Yeah, right. I mean, you got to do whatever wherever the team needs you. Kind of that mentality is that'll get you far once you start getting to higher levels. I think it was just recently Cortland Sutton in an interview after one of the games. He said they need me to block TJ Watt. I'll block TJ Watt. Whatever the team needs me to do to win. Like I don't need to catch touchdown passes. Whatever the team needs, I'll do it. That's a
Yeah,
good attitude.
yeah,
So growing up as a kid in the UP, I mean, or a kid anywhere, watching like Big Ten football, especially Michigan State and teams like that, it's exciting. And you always have kids dream, hey, I want to play for those teams, I want to play against those teams, and you got to, you were talking about playing in front of 30,000 people. But at Michigan State, I found that the attendance it said for that one of those games was almost 74,000 people at Spartan Stadium. I think you guys lost just by a couple touchdowns, is what it
yeah.
said. So a battle of a game in a crazy environment that had to be pretty exhilarating.
Yeah, that was quite a game. I remember that was my senior year, and yeah, I was just playing golf at a alumni golf outing this summer, and we were talking about that game. But it's funny when after a while you just stop. It's not like it's not a big deal, but you just don't notice the fans. I don't remember the fans. I can kind of remember where maybe my wife, now girlfriend, and my parents, like you see them, you kind of know where the families are sitting. Um, but you don't look up. And it's funny too, because I just took my boys to the state central game last year. We helped Connor Stallions get on the sideline, I guess. No, we didn't, but uh, we kind of we're sitting up in the end zone where the visiting team comes out. And I just remember thinking, there are so many people here. I can't believe this. It didn't seem like that when you're down on the field.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of I know you talk to a lot of athletes and they get to the point where they can turn off the noise. You don't let it bother you. I had a kicker on pretty early in the podcast and he said he can completely tune out the noise when he's going to kick and I mean obviously that's a valuable skill to have when everyone's trying to make you miss the kick and they're trying to distract you and stuff. So it's definitely when you get to the point where you can tune it out, that's kind of good because you're just focused on the game. People are obviously yelling stuff. They're trying to make you mess up in any sport. You go to a tech hockey game, and they're always yelling at the opposing team's goalie, and if you let that stuff get to you, you're
Yeah.
gonna make mistakes.
Yeah, and that's what it was. And kind of another story and interesting. My second start was out in Syracuse, out in the Carrier Dome, which is the loudest, was the loudest place to play in the country. Um, and they had a quarterback named Donovan McNabb, and they had a middle linebacker named Keith Bullock, who Pro Bowl linebacker, and they had a tilted nose tackle. I mean, this guy must have been about 350 pounds, just tilted right at your neck there. Kind of, they don't even run that defense anymore. And but that was the second start that I made, and that place was loud. I remember we had to go on silent count, and there wasn't you couldn't hear the quarterback, so you had to look back and have all those things set.
Yeah, yeah. There's certain places in the country known for like Kyle Field, the home of the 12th man. I mean, 112,000 screaming people. I mean, I just can't imagine being in that environment. It's just absolutely insane that many people screaming at the top of their lungs. I mean, I don't know how you can hear yourself think in that environment. um but talking about big time players, you guys played Purdue, and I started to think this morning, I was like, wait a second, Drew Brees have been around, and then
Ooh,
he was
he
the
lit us up. He lit us
yeah.
up. He was throwing bombs even back then. Yeah, we played against some good players. You know, saw Randy Moss up close and personal at Marshall, and saw some good players and played against some good players. Those players in the Big Ten are all very good. But we always felt like we could compete with them. And I think, in hindsight, you look back, it was the depth. They could roll in three defensive lines deep of, really quality defensive linemen and, just keep rolling guys in. Um, so if you're going to beat a big time team and, you have to get some breaks and, be able to overcome that depth that the other team's going to have.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's the thing is, I mean, some of these little schools, you see it all the time. It's kind of, you look at in first quarter, game might be tied. I mean, by the second half, often, Ohio State or whoever it is blowing the other team out. I think, just this year, Alabama was tied with USF, and then in the fourth quarter, Alabama scored 28 points and ended up winning by 30. So it's just so hard to go the whole game, go the distance when you've got that depth and you can just keep rolling them in there.
Yeah.
Um, you were also you were second team All MAC in 2001, your senior year. That had to feel, pretty good. Get some recognition. I mean, with all the hard work you put in and you get noticed for it, especially being a kid from the UP, small town, and you go down and you play on a big stage and you get noticed for it.
Yeah, yeah, that was pretty neat. It was kind of one of those things. A lot of people knew before I did, and so you'd get some phone calls. But I played with a lot of guys, and you know, I don't know if I necessarily deserved it more than anybody else, but it was really neat, and it is nice to be recognized. Um, but there, you think about the hard work and the sacrifice, and that is neat. I will say that season, the biggest honor that I think I've had in sports was the team voted me, a captain. There were 4 captains that year, and to have your peers really say this is the guy we want to follow. I think that meant more than that second team All MAC. At that point, the season was over, and
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to hear those things, but to know that your work day in and day out, the guys on the team think that you should be a leader on it and recognize that meant more.
Right, yeah, that does mean a lot. It's one of the highest honors, to be a captain on any team, because like you said, your teammates chose you out of what 100 guys on a football team, and they picked you and 3 other guys to lead the team. So I mean, it means a lot about what they think about you and your work ethic and everything. So you already kind of answered this question. You mentioned that you had taken your sons to a game recently and that you did an alumni golf tournament, but do you stay connected with guys you played with? Do you get back, often every few years to games, or, how
You know what I
connected
really,
are you?
yeah, I used to be, it's one of those things like those were family members, and but then you have your own family and your kids, and it was probably in the last probably year and a half that I kind of all of us linemen connected. Well, they've all been kind of hanging out, and I finally kind of jumped back into it. But with kids and a family, you just have your head down and work. And um, but all of us linemen got together. We got 15 linemen together last February in Charlevoix to go ice fishing, and there's no ice. And but we had a great time. And it's funny, I rolled in to the house we rented, and it was like midnight, and a group of linemen that I'd played with and lived with, and it was like we hadn't missed a beat. It was like the last time I saw you was 5 minutes ago, and we were talking about the same thing we are talking about 5 minutes ago, and so that's been really fun. Yeah, that was it's been great to kind of get together with those guys, and we're already planning things. We're going to try to meet at homecoming this year, and kind of some of those things where you get to a certain age, and you're like, geez, I wonder how those guys are doing, and if I don't reach out and hang out with them now, it's probably never going to happen.
Right, yeah. It's cool though that you still have that bond. I mean, that shows you how close you are, how close a team can be. And here you are, 20, 23 years later. And like you said, it's just like you're picking up right where you left off. I mean, that's
Oh,
pretty
and
cool.
just so funny. I mean, those guys, I mean, uh, I just can't even tell you how good a time we have when we get together, and how much we laugh, and the stories coming out, and um you put 10 300-pound guys together for 5 years, there's going to be some ups and downs, but you're going to laugh about it all for sure.
Yeah. And speaking of teammates, you had another. There was another a fellow Youper, another Hancock Bulldog on the team. Eric Solani was a tight end. That it had to be kind of nice to have somebody you knew from your hometown on the same team as you.
Yeah, it was really cool. And EJ and I still that was kind of the constant is EJ and I would stay in contact. We try to get together once a year, talk, and yeah, it was really neat to have a kid that we played Little League baseball together. We did everything together. I mean, we used to hang out together all the time from age 10 years old on. And then to play college football together was really cool. Yeah, that was an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, I think it's got to be kind of rare, when you get to play big time college football or any college football at any level with one of your fellow teammates, like you said, kid you grew up with, and you get to play together. That can't
Yeah,
happen very often.
no, you're at Condon Field in Hancock there, saying, "Let's go, buddy. Come on, let's get after it." And you're gonna go play Calumet or Lake Linden, and then you fast forward and you have that same memory with that same person, in Kinnick Stadium in Iowa. Like
Yeah,
that's really cool that a couple Copper Country boys can do that together. Um,
yeah, definitely is. And if we stay inside the family, your brother was a defensive lineman at MTU. So did you guys have some friendly brotherly competition?
oh,
You being
oh,
an offensive
yeah.
lineman?
Yeah, yeah, there's some good stories there, and kind of to take it to the other family members, that expectation for playing football. I have an uncle that was an All-American defensive lineman at Michigan Tech, and Chuck Klingbeil is a cousin. And so, we grew up just kind of idolizing football players and wanting to be football players. But my older brother, he had that older brother thing over me, and I took some serious beat downs all the way through. Even when I was a junior and senior in high school. I'll never forget though, and he will tell you this isn't a true story, but this is a true story. We call it the shampoo bottle incident, Head and Shoulders. I came back from college and he, just like old times, was picking on me, and I picked him up and I planted him into the drywall between the studs, and he was stuck in the drywall and his feet were kicking off the ground, and there was a print in the drywall of his head and his shoulders. And we put a poster over it, and my parents sold that house like 2 or 3 years later, and boy, was my dad mad. He asked what happened, and I don't know, but that was kind of the time that I think my brother Tyler kind of backed off a little bit and was thinking, okay, well, maybe we're not going to go do pass rush in the driveway here. But
Yeah.
Tyler had an unbelievable career. He walked on at Tech, and he was 6 foot, 200 pounds. And when he graduated, he was 6'3", 6'4", 250 pounds. He was just kind of one of those late blooming Finlanders. But he had a great career. And then Tyler and I actually, when I was student teaching in Iron Mountain, they started an arena football league team in Green Bay, the Green Bay Blizzard. And he said, "Hey, we should go try out for that team." I had a couple NFL tryouts, and I played some couple weeks here, a couple weeks there, and for some AF1 arena football teams. And I said, "You know what, Tyler, I'll go with you." And we went to an open tryout. There was like 500 guys there. And because it was Green Bay, it was the start of football, and there were guys that played high school football and were plumbers for 10 years. Like that was kind of the I would say at least half the guys there thought they were gonna, make the Green Bay Packers. And but Tyler and I were the only ones who got contracts out of those 500 guys. We ended up making it through training camp together and played a season of arena football with the Green Bay Blizzard. We got to go to Atlanta and Hawaii and play. So that was a really neat football experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we battled when we'd go out to practice. Those were probably some of the more storied Hill brother battles, is when we battled in that arena ball together. Yeah, and I think that's probably why we got contracts. I mean, we just started battling out there. They put us in kind of some competitive drills, and I think they were afraid we were going to hurt some people. And they said, "Why don't you guys stand over there?" And we kind of thought like, "Oh, well, maybe we didn't make this team." But then they just said, "You guys come back to training camp," and um, yeah, so that was pretty neat.
Huh, that's one thing I didn't know. I didn't find that in any of my digging that that you played a little bit of arena football, a little bit of different animal than playing like full 11
Yeah,
man
it
outdoor
it it,
football.
it was something. It was you got to play, that was when arena ball they limited substitutions, so you had to play both ways in the special teams. So you had to play offense and defense and kick off cover, and when you were out, you were out. And so that was really a neat experience. They actually just had Tyler and I back. We were on the first team, so they had a 20-year reunion last year, and they treated us really nice. We weren't very good. But they had us out at halftime and introduced us and had jerseys for the kids with our names on them. And um, that was a neat experience.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Be the part of starting something and then to have the team honor you, and your family. I mean that's something pretty neat. And the fact that you got to play with your brother, I mean that's I'm sure what made it so special. And the memories, and if you
Yeah.
did it just by yourself, it definitely wouldn't have meant as much as it did playing with your brother.
No, not at all. And he had a full-time job at a foundry, and I was student teaching. And practice was 10 to midnight at uh, indoor soccer field in Green Bay. And so, I'd finish student teaching, come home, take a nap. From Iron Mountain to Green Bay is about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. So we'd eat, get on the road, and get down around 9:30 for practice, and then roll back into Iron Mountain about 2 a.m. And we did that for 3 months. But those road trips together, we just had a good time. It was one of those things that was a grind, but I wouldn't have traded that opportunity to do that with my brother.
Yeah, that's really cool. So if we fast forward to now, and obviously I mentioned you're the superintendent at Houghton, but you're also one of the varsity football coaches. When you were younger, did you ever think, hey, I might coach football someday?
I've always liked football. I I kind of knew I never wanted to not be involved with football. It's one of those games. I tell people football is the ultimate team game. You know, you have to have everybody doing the right thing at the right time together, or it looks like you don't even look like you know what you're doing. Um, so I wanted to be a part of it. I got into reffing when I knew I couldn't coach. And, now that I have a son in high school, I kind of jumped into coaching 4 or 5 years ago. So just wanting his experience to be the best it could. But I think I'll always be involved with the game somehow, whether it's, coaching, refereeing, volunteering, whatever I can do just to be around it.
Yeah. What do you like most about coaching?
Uh, just being with the guys and seeing, when you put everything together, and seeing guys improve. You know, I've told a couple people this, and hopefully it translates to wins and losses. This coaching this group of kids has probably been one of the more fun experiences I've had. And I've coached, I started when I began teaching, I coached down in McBain, and I coached some really good kids that I'm still in contact with and still call me. Um, and that was, almost 20 years ago. And then I kind of took a break, but this group is they're just so fun to coach. They work so hard, they get better every week. And, you know, that's been enjoyable.
Yeah. Right. It's not as much fun if you've got kids that don't want to be coached and they don't want to work hard. I mean, that kind of takes it out of it when you got a good group of kids that strive to improve and they want to win. I mean, that's what makes it enjoyable. You got a
Yeah.
good group and you can work together.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of ending every episode recently on music because I'm a big music guy. I like music and I like finding new music. So I've been trying to get guests, kind of what they listen to. And you can do it a few different ways. I guess it depends. Do you have like do you listen to Spotify, Apple Music, or any of those things, or are you a radio guy, or how do you listen to music if you're gonna listen?
Yeah. I mean, I got a playlist. Would that be considered Apple there
Yeah,
if I make a
yeah,
playlist on my phone? I don't listen to music a ton. We do have kind of a tradition that goes back with my dad and my uncles, and just we've always taken a sauna. Once a week we take a sauna.
Yeah.
I think that was the hardest part about Mount Pleasant is I couldn't find a good sauna down there. Um, but we take a sauna and you got to have some music playing, and I think my uncle Dave started me on this, but I'm a big Gordan Lightfoot fan. I can listen
Okay.
to Gordon
Yeah.
Lightfoot in the sauna. Gord's Gold, that album is hard to beat, and yeah, Sundown, Canadian Railroad Trilogy, Carefree Highway. Um, those are songs that I can really relax and I guess I like to listen to. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I love Gordon Lightfoot actually. I love If You Could Read My Mind. That's one of my favorite songs actually, and it's he's got a lot of great songs if you dive deep into his stuff. He's a
Yeah.
great songwriter and a singer, and then obviously the Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald. I mean, that's one of those songs everybody knows when it comes on the radio.
Yeah,
Um,
but I would say that's not even in his top 10. I
no,
would,
it's not. It's
that's the one people know, but yeah, you gotta go into the library and you'll keep finding good ones.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how it is with a lot of things. It's just the overplayed songs, the ones on the radio are the ones people know, but they're definitely not the best for those artists. You gotta dive deep and you really find the good stuff, the stuff that you kind of gotta dig and wipe the dust off of, and that's the good stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
and
Gordon
for me it's
Lightfoot,
it's good memories because like I said, I can remember taking a sauna with my uncle and him playing that when I was a kid. And you
yeah,
know, music's one of those things that can take you back. You can hear a song that you heard in
yeah,
the locker room in college or in high school, or the music brings back memories. So for me, it's the good memories and just relaxing music.
yeah. No, I love that. That's awesome. All right, well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, sharing your journey, and yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and you gave me a little bit of credibility with the kids. I've been on a podcast now.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. Please stay tuned for more episodes soon.